The Hunted storyline is in full swing in Amazing Spider-Man number 17, and we get the deadliest Batman of them all. What's up, everybody? I'm Stan, and welcome to Detail Comics, where we go over comics in detail. This is going to be preview picks, where I'm going over the comic books coming out on Wednesday. So, to kick things off, let's start talking about independent titles, where we have Oblivion song on Image from Robert Kirkman, and this is going to be a continuation of a kind of cross-dimensional storyline that Kirkman's been telling. Essentially, this small piece of another dimension was plucked out of another universe and dropped inside this city, and it's caused this one man to strive for years and years and years to go find his long-lost brother, as well as pull back as many people as he possibly can. So, despite the fact that he has achieved success, there's so many things going on that he doesn't necessarily have a good idea when his mission's going to stop. So it's one that you should be checking out. However, I do prefer Gideon Falls from Jeff Lemire, which unfortunately isn't coming out this week. Also, we have a new number one that has been getting a lot of press lately, and that is going to be Little Bird number one, which is telling the story of what appears to be a young child grown to be some sort of assassin or a relatively brutal individual. It looks really cool. It's got an interesting art style, and overall, like I said, a lot of people have been talking about it, especially inside the comic industry, so it's one that you should probably be checking out. Over at DC, it's close to the end of the run for Titans with number 35, and overall the revamped storyline, the revamped team, and the lack of Wally West, as well as Nightwing, a number of other things are really impacting the Titans team. It's just not quite what it once was. At the beginning of DC Rebirth, it was one of the best spots for like Easter eggs regarding DC Rebirth, and now it's just kind of a shadow of its former self. So I'm sorry to see it go, but overall, Titans number 35 is coming out, and it's one of the last issues you're going to see for quite some time. Then over at Marvel, we get Punisher number 9, which is continuing the story by Matthew Rosenberg, with these covers by Greg Smallwood, and overall Punisher is, well, it's a street-level vigilante story, and Matthew Rosenberg's writing a lot of different stuff around the Marvel Universe, including Uncanny X-Men, and Punisher seems to be a bit more of a niche book compared to what he's tackling elsewhere inside the Marvel Universe. I have to admit I haven't really been reading it, but it's something that I want you guys to be aware of. Another book that I haven't been reading, but one that I'm always constantly aware of, is Hawkman from Robert Venditti, and Hawkman number 10 is coming out, which is continuing the story of Carter Hall. And overall, they've been trying to cram everything they possibly can from Hawkman's origin stories and kind of unify this character through the course of all these issues. And Hawkman is kind of a mixed bag, to be perfectly honest with you. After playing a relatively huge role inside DC's Dark Knight's Metal, I just haven't had the necessary interest in the character in order to continue that. I really think that Hawkgirl is getting a much more consistent and really interesting story arc inside the Justice League, and I'm really more intrigued by that. Then over at Marvel, we get Tony Stark Iron Man number 9 from Dan Slott, and this is going to be the first one that's co-written by Jim Zub. So with Dan Slott's current, well, let's say obligations inside the Marvel Universe with Fantastic Four, Tony Stark and Fantastic Four have been kind of getting delayed. So in order to help him meet his deadlines and, well, maybe possibly transition into a new writer, we're actually going to see Jim Zub take on co-writing duties for Dan Slott. So the question is, who's doing the story, who's doing the plot, who's doing the words, how is this going to kind of gel? And Tony Stark Iron Man number 9 is one of the first books where we're really going to get that sense, that feel of where that story is going to go. I know that Christos Gage really helped out a lot on Amazing Spider-Man, so this could be another relationship similar to that, and I'm excited to see what kind of potential it brings. If possible, maybe transitioning just to Zub so that way Slott can focus on Fantastic Four, or some combination that goes on to Fantastic Four that will help him keep that book on time as well. I'm excited for the results, one that I'm going to have to check out. Next, we can talk about Supergirl number 28 from Mark Andreyko, which continues her cosmic journey out inside the DC universe and DC landscape. She's still continuing to battle things with the Omega Men, and now she's come up with a whole host of Supergirls that she needs to come across. So it's not necessarily the most relevant storyline, it seems. I'm not sure if it's diving into Superman, I'm not sure if it's diving into Justice League, but Mark Andreyko's telling a Supergirl story, and it's kind of interesting. Also, we have Catwoman number 9, written by Joelle Jones, and this is going to be another continuation of this lovely thief-on-the-run kind of storyline that she's been working with, developing her own villains, developing her own other characters, creating this alternate life away from Batman, which might come to an end as Tom King concludes his run. I'm not necessarily sure, but it's one that I always keep my eye on. And then just to enhance this a little bit, they both get the eye candy covers of the week from Art Germ. So you've got Supergirl number 28, which gets a variant cover that looks like, well, that. And then you've got Catwoman number 9, which gets a variant cover that looks like, well, that. So those are two really popular covers. When we see reorders every single week, they always have like are germ variants. People just like, oh, I like to pick that up. Then over at Marvel, we get Spider-Gwen Ghost Spider number 6, which is continuing the storyline of Gwen Stacy from Earth 65 with her kind of Venom suit. So it's really interesting to see how this is developing. Most people are going to be aware of Ghost Spider or Spider-Gwen from the Marvel, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse movie that just came out and just crushed it. I mean, it won an Oscar for Best Animated Movie, which is dope, but we know that this character goes all the way back to Spider-Verse, The Edge of the Spider-Verse, and Jason Latour and Robbie Rodriguez did a phenomenal job developing this character into who she is today, and now she's continuing to move on with that. She's still got her Venom suit and all that, so it's one that if you're interested in Spider-Gwen, yeah, I mean, it's the best spot to pick her up in. I mean, it's the only way you can get her. Another kind of interesting, fun comic in the similar vein to Spider-Gwen is going to be Wonder Twins, and Wonder Twins number 1 was an interesting kind of refreshing take. It was really focused on the different characters. Even though they were working side by side with Superman and Wonder Woman and Batman and all those different kind of things, Mark Russell and Stephen Byrne really encapsulated this so that way we were telling a story about kids in high school. That's what it was really about. And while they did defeat Mxyzptlk in a really odd kind of way, it was a really fun and kind of refreshing storyline. Might not necessarily be for everybody, but for people that are fans of the campy cartoon, it might be kind of a cool way to introduce these characters into a more modern DC universe and make them more relatable for younger readers. It could be interesting. I'm going to keep my eyes on it. It wasn't necessarily enough to bring me back for issue number 2, but I'm pretty close. However, there's a book I'm going to read till the end, and that is Avengers No Road Home. And issue number 5 is coming out this week, and what we saw with the last panel of Avengers No Road Home in number 4 was the Immortal Hulk brandishing an onyx blade with a skull on it, sitting atop a rearing nightmare steed inside the Land of Nightmares, about to defend the castle from Hypnos and his army of the Unsleeping Legions. And, I mean, that's just super cool. So based on the conflicts that we've got, we're going to have Hypnos versus the Hulk. We already saw that Nyx took out Hercules with Apate and Dolos, and there's a lot of stuff that's going on as they track down the remaining soul shards for Nyx herself, so that way she can regain all of her power. And then everybody is going to have to face off with Misery at some point in time, and there's a lot of stuff that's going on in this storyline, but it's really fast-paced, and some people might say that the only reason to read it is the Immortal Hulk, which, it's a good reason, but overall I think that the combination of Jim Zub, Mark Waid, Al Ewing, and the various artists that have been working on it is really just telling a good story that's worth picking up every single week. Then over at DC, we'll hopefully tie into the greater cosmic universe with Justice League Dark number 9. The continuing struggle between the team and Dr. Fate and his various other aspects of Dr. Fate is one that doesn't necessarily have specific tie-ins to what we're dealing with right now. Like Justice League Odyssey has Darkseid being the only remaining member of the New Gods, and now he's got to deal with a whole bunch of other stuff. But Justice League Dark is still a little bit outside that. We get insinuations inside the main Justice League book as Wonder Woman starts casting various pieces of magic, but I haven't really felt the kind of connection. I need to go back and reread it to see exactly what we're getting out of this title, because hopefully we're going to get that cohesive trinity, that triumvirate of various Justice League titles that are going to help push this cosmic chaos Scott Snyder's developing into the future. Next, we can talk about Amazing Spider-Man. So Amazing Spider-Man number 17 is going to be continuing the Hunted storyline that kicked off last issue, and we had a 16.hu, and you can check all those out in the upper corner. I'll have a little button up there so you can go start the playlist. But the Hunted storyline, which is going to be dealing with Kraven, who has rounded up all these various animal aspect villains, possibly heroes, we don't quite know, and is going to be allowing billionaires and trillionaires and the richest people in the world to hunt them down, what seems to be inside New York City. There's a lot that's going to be going on. The importation of various people and characters into the New York Harbor by way of Arcade at the end of last issue is a real big key to where this is going to be going. And then in the previews, we actually see that Kraven is sitting in some sort of like penthouse. And so, Amazing Spider-Man number 17. I'm a Spider-Man fan, so I can't miss it. But overall, Nick Spencer's real first take into an event or a real big overarching plan inside the Marvel Universe as a Spider-Man writer, well, you got to check it out to see if he really executes. Then, now that the price is over, Joshua Williamson is picking up in Flash number 66, which is going to be developing the storyline after that. And then also we've got the conclusion of the Force Quest thing that he did with Iris, so there's a lot of different moving pieces that the Flash has to pick up for, and that's in preparation for what Joshua Williamson's going to be doing in the future, which is going to be Flash Year 1. I haven't really been reading The Flash, especially after the Godspeed arc kind of petered out on its own, and then I read The Button and this new Price crossover and stuff like that, so I'm not really up on what Joshua Williamson's been doing, but I've been catching dabs here and there. However, I am really excited for Year 1, and anything that's going to set up to that, I'm going to be really interested in picking up. Overall, The Flash, Joshua Williamson, they've been doing a really good job with this character, but with the current events of Heroes in Crisis, it feels like there might be some sort of stasis going on inside the DC universe regarding some of these characters. Then to finish things off over DC, we're going to be talking about Superman number 9, and while I said that I wasn't going to read Superman number 8, and I did anyway, and I made a video on it, we've got Superman number 9, and the reason that Superman number 9 is interesting is because we're going to be dealing with young John Kent around the Crime Syndicate. And most people pointed out in the comments of the video that the Crime Syndicate's like dead, or at least they should be dead, or there's a bunch of different stuff going on, and Brian Michael Bendis is writing his own current cosmic continuity that's completely independent of what has happened and what will happen and what is currently happening inside the DC universe. He's doing whatever the hell he wants, which is very much Brian Michael Bendis, and it's one of those things that I don't necessarily like. However, I have to keep tabs on it because at some point in time it feels like he's going to try and make all this stuff important. And Superman is a real pinnacle character. He is one of the things that should be selling the most, other than, say, like Batman. He should be the paragon of what we really need inside the DC universe, and right now he's just not quite floating my boat, so I've got to at least be aware of what's going on in the storyline so that way I can see how it's going to impact or whether it impacts anything at all. So over at Marvel, we get Age of Conan Belit, which is dealing with the Pirate Queen as she's sailing the seven seas inside the Age of Conan. So we continue to get a cornucopia of various Conan titles, and it's going to be dealing with the Barbarian in a variety of different situations between Conan, Savage Sword of Conan, he's gonna get thrown into Savage Avengers, we've got Age of Conan, and there's other titles that are gonna be coming out in Age of Conan as well. So Belit, really not familiar with the character at all, however it seems to be intriguing, so it's one that I might want to check out. Also over at Marvel, we get Apocalypse and the X-Tracts, which is part of the Age of X-Man series that is going to be going on. It's another 5-part miniseries that's going to be dealing with Apocalypse and various beatnik members of his X-Tracts from society saying, it's okay to love. It's weird to see Apocalypse and the rest of his team as kind of like hippies outside of this Age of X-Man story, promoting free love and revolution and that kind of stuff. Not real odd to see him promoting revolution and the dominance of his people, as well as himself, but really interesting to see how it's being set up inside this storyline. So it's not necessarily for me because I'm not into the Age of X-Man storyline. It just didn't really appeal to me that much, but it's one that if you're checking it out, it could be really fun. Then the last new number 1 that I want to talk about from Marvel is the Magnificent Ms. Marvel, which is going to be written by Saladin Ahmed. So while we had Willow Wilson just basically end her storyline run, and it was one of the most prolific, well, actually it is the prolific run of Marvel's Ms. Marvel because it's the only writer for Ms. Marvel. So Ms. Marvel is getting a brand new writer in Saladin Ahmed, who's going to be taking her character in a variety of different directions. Overall, I'm excited to see where this one goes. I'm not necessarily a Ms. Marvel fan. I'm not necessarily a Ms. Marvel reader, even though I do know all about Ms. Marvel from Willow Wilson's run. It's just not something that necessarily spoke to me specifically, so I'm wondering what Saladin Ahmed's work is going to be doing for the character. Then to finish things up, we have The Batman Who Laughs, The Grim Knight. So in this offshoot storyline from Scott Snyder and Jock regarding the Batman Who Laughs, who's recently returned to the DC universe, which he's continually telling Batman that he's the most miserable person. He's dropping really happy Bruce Waynes, going out into the multiverse, killing them, dropping them right in front of him, and starting this whole mystery where he's in a different universe with the most miserous. There's a lot of different dark multiversal hopping stuff dealing with the Batman Who Laughs, and he recruited or was recruited by the Grim Knight. If Joe Chill had dropped the gun in the middle of the night, this is the Batman he would have become. One of the most precise and deadly shots inside the, well, DC multiverse. This is the guy that you want behind your sniper scope if you're at war. And that's what happened to Wayne Enterprises. But the Grim Knight is going to deal with a lot more of that individual character and makes it one of the most anticipated books of the week. But I want to know what you guys are looking to get on Wednesday. Hit me up on the comments down below and we can start that conversation and go over what might be cool. But as always, if you like what you see, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to get more news, reviews, and commentary on comic books and more.